The Friday, Western New York. The sun is out. It's been a miserable October here in Western New York. My leaves are falling. I have a tremendous number of trees, and the leaves fall on my lawn, and it is not the most wonderful time of the year for me. I have to go out there. It takes forever to clean those leaves up. But at least the sun's out. Maybe I'll be able to go out there and scoop some leaves up and get them off my lawn today. No Ken today. Instead, we are going to be having another user spotlight. User spotlights are one of my more favorite segments to do here on Ziti TV. Always fun and exciting to see people using OpenZiti to learn what they're doing, how they're doing it. And today we have our friend Dominik from DeltaSecure back. So let's bring Dominik on the screen here. Boom. Hey, Dominik.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well. So I have a relatively complicated last name, and I don't speak German. How do you say your last name?
My last name? It's Münsterer. So
Münsterer. All right.
it's with the
Nice.
umlaut. Yeah.
I love the umlaut. Yeah, I appreciated the fact that you actually put that in the email when we were talking ahead of time because I was able to use that when I, went out and promoted it here and there. So that was cool. Well, welcome back. Excited to have you back. I know we talked, I think, way back in maybe what was it, February of this year?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, that's cool. So if you, I'm still a novice when it comes to these whole streams, but if I remember to go back and put a link to the video, I should, you know what, let me take a note. Let me do that real quick. Link to last video in description, right? Because then if people are interested in what you did before, they can go back and check that particular link. But for those who aren't going to go click on that link, can you just give me a little background, what it is, what do you do, what are you doing with OpenZiti, and who do you work for, and what does that company do?
Sure. So we offer managed security services for small and medium-sized companies, and we focus on collecting logs of infrastructures, be it servers, firewalls, clients, whatever any business might have, and collect all those logs and gain intelligence out of it. So detect things that might be malicious or that someone should be looking at, and we offer that as an external contractor for those companies who don't have the personnel to do it in house, basically.
Yeah,
And
and,
we
and why would you, right? Like in nowadays world, you can buy a service. You don't need a person to go do a thing. You can just pay somebody to go do that what you need. I love the term "do the needful." So if you need logs scanned and shipped and inspected, DeltaSecure seems like they have you covered. Much like running your own OpenZiti overlay network, right? Like if you don't want to run your own overlay network, you don't have to. NetFoundry will do that for you. So that's really neat. So, do you guys scan all kinds of logs? Like you have just every interesting project that's out there, SQL Server, or is it like internet logs or access logs, switches, all the above?
Yeah, it's pretty much everything. It depends on the customer, really, what they really want to have analyzed, but also what kind of infrastructure they have. For the most customers, we always log firewall logs, but also server client logs, process executions, DNS queries that are made on clients, strace commands on an OS level. So every kind, but also custom applications, for example, any kind of door access solutions, for example. So
Neat.
it can get pretty custom. Yeah,
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun. Now,
it
I
is.
I don't. You had mentioned before that you were doing all these log shipping. What sort of how do you ship those logs?
So we use OpenZiti as an overlay
Oh,
network to ship the logs. We have our own hosted overlay, and we basically use Ziti to get the logs from our customers to our infrastructure without punching any holes into any kind of infrastructure. So we don't use any IPsec tunnels or OpenVPN tunnels or any of that sort, but instead we use the Ziti overlay. In the meantime, we also established one more router, so we now have multiple routers in our overlay that can handle the traffic, and we're pretty satisfied with it. We can allow our customers to only access certain ports on our log collecting machines, which doesn't allow them any sort of access that they don't need, and for us it's pretty convenient to have a reliable solution to ship the logs to our infrastructure.
I very much appreciate the pretty satisfied comment. I love it. Does that mean there's something that could be better?
Well, we're always working and trying things out. Right now, we're actually really satisfied. We're the only thing
Yes.
we're the only thing that we're always continuously trying to do is having a look at how to get it into a high availability mode. So is maybe if there's any solution to, for example, if a tunnel crashes, if we have a possibility to have an overlay here. To kind of catch any failures. So that's always something to think about and to improve on. But overall, we're really satisfied, especially with the controller performance or reliability. I'm really satisfied because it didn't crash. It's running nonstop since more than a year now, September 15th, I guess. And there wasn't a single time where the controller didn't run, except for when I restarted it. But that was on purpose.
Nice. Well, that's out. I mean, that's honestly that's great to hear. That's amazing. You added a new router. You said how many do you have total? Do you mind? Can we like talk about things like that?
Yeah,
really quick?
we only have two total actually,
Yeah.
and we don't have any issues with a single router in the sense that the performance is great, but the second router is just as a backup essentially.
Sure.
So we don't have any large internal networks where we would have to deploy any router in our network and one in the cloud, but instead it's both cloud routers that are accessible from anywhere. So we just have them deployed on different cloud providers.
Oh,
Just
neat. So even different cloud providers. That's
yeah.
cool. Yeah, nice. And just for redundancy, right? Not to
Yeah.
put it any closer to customers or anything along those lines.
No, because we can't get any closer to our customers essentially because we don't have any let's say real fiber network between us and the customers, but we're really just using the internet here.
Yeah. Neat. That's I think this is the kind of stuff I just find so fun and fascinating. So that's really neat. Let's see. You had mentioned one other thing I can't remember at the moment. So we were doing log shipping. Oh, performance. So
Mhm.
the one router has been solving anything. Is it a big beefy machine or is it medium size? Like how big did you scope the router?
Very small. I think it has only two virtual CPUs,
Yeah.
2 GB
Yeah.
of RAM. It's really it doesn't need any performance, and it's the same with the controller as well. So we do have high network bandwidths available, but we don't have any kind of performance basically. So that's just a basic
Right.
Debian machine running, and we don't even come near to being maxed out on performance.
Yeah, that's great. If I can, I think last time we talked about maybe the Zetified beats. Did you ever get around to playing with Zetified beats?
Not yet, but also part of because we changed our log collecting infrastructure. So we are putting a message queue in between now because we're prepared essentially for any kind of network disruptions between the customer and us. So we have a buffering pool, and that's why the beat wouldn't be able to connect directly to us essentially, but puts its logs into a message queue into
Mm,
Kafka actually, and then from Kafka we will pull the logs.
neat.
So
So,
it would be needed to be deployed into Kafka, which is, I don't know, certainly possible, but I don't know how easy it would be.
gotcha. So you are shipping your logs straight to a Kafka instance then?
Yes, but it's on the local network, so
Yeah,
it's
that's what I was going
a
to ask next.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay, so almost like a Prometheus kind of approach where you have a local collector and then you go get the things routinely from that collected agent. But you're using Prometheus, not using Prometheus, using Kibana. Kibana, you said? No,
Kafka,
Kafka.
Kafka.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no worries.
Right. Oh, too many Ks. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Kafka for queuing. That's really. I think that's interesting. I assume there must have been a reason that made that happen, right? At some point, you lost some logs or something.
Yeah, that's correct. Our approach was to directly send the logs via raw TCP to our log collecting machine. But we had compatibility issues without OpenZiti, but with our log sending instance essentially and our log collecting instance, which somehow the TCP connection wasn't reliable, and that's why we switched to UDP, which is fine on a reliable connection. But that resulted once into the logs getting thrown into nirvana, if you will, because we had network disruption, and the CD tunneler couldn't connect to the controller and to the endpoint, and this resulted into all the UDP logs, hundreds of logs per second, to go into the tunneler, and then it at some point it just crashed. So we thought it would be a better opportunity to not send hundreds of logs per second, but to just pull them whenever you can. So that's where we made the change here.
Yeah, neat. Well, we're not here to talk about the log shipping, although I almost certainly could just go on and on and on about it. But we're here to talk about hypervisors. So you had some other interesting use case you thought was cool. I thought was cool too. And also, my little surprise for you, I hinted at this surprise earlier. So I'm going to bring my surprise on the screen now. I don't know if you saw this. No, I see him. Wait, actually, let me go back to the view here. I see Dominik smiling because you must have known about this. I saw this just literally the other day, October 25th. This was posted on Bleeping Computer, and it's all about how there is a severe vulnerability in vSphere and vCenter. And my favorite line of the whole blog was that there was no workaround available. So, is this the kind of thing that you're working on?
Yeah, so we use vCenter 8, so we weren't impacted by this vulnerability. But
nice.
in general, it's a pretty. I mean, it just shows the issue around that you just, even if you can, and if you have secure passwords and authentication, or even if you don't allow password authentication, but just via keys, it's just not a secure means to have any web servers or SSH servers available to the open internet, and that's essentially what we were trying to fix here.
Awesome. Well, that is very timely, and what a great setup. So let's get into it. You're gonna
Sure.
take us on a tour of what you did.
Sure. So let me just share my screen.
Let me put it on the screen, and there it is. All right.
Okay.
I'm gonna just turn my video off, and I'm gonna leave you on.
Okay. So I'm just going to show let's call it conventional way of accessing hypervisor management interfaces. And this cloud here on the left side is essentially just the internet, and then you have your hypervisor also somewhere on the internet normally, and you can just access it via a web interface on port 443, or for example SSH on port 22. And if you're lucky, you have a firewall in between. But if you're not, you'll just end up having your management interfaces and open ports available to the public internet, which means that you can just look it up on Shodan, for example, that you'll find hundreds of thousands of open VMware hosts available to the public internet, which obviously results to vulnerabilities being just publicly available.
Hundreds of thousands, really?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, it's
That
just
is
like
crazy.
open webcams. Yeah, you'll find thousands.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and it's amazing, but it's a big problem. And the way we fix that, or actually the way we wanted to fix that, is the first thought was to somehow maybe deploy an OpenZiti tunneler on the hypervisor itself, so on the OS level, or install the packets. But regarding support and the need for the hypervisor to run very stable, I thought that it might not be the best idea. So we ended up to deploy two VMs. One is a bastion host, and one is a firewall. And to the hypervisor itself, there's no open port available, so it's completely blocked from the outside. And we have a bastion host, which has an OpenZiti tunneler installed. And we have a firewall which allows connections to the outer world, and also allows TCP replies back, but only replies and not initiated TCP sessions. So now we are at a point where we can establish a connection from a user to the bastion host. via OpenZiti without having any open port, and from there on route any request to the management interface, which is not available from the outside anymore, but only from a VMK from inside the hypervisor.
So that's
And
neat because now you're layering and leveraging the existing firewall that you already had, that you already liked the security of, and now you're just allowing people to get through that firewall in the same way that they used to, just without having to go through the open internet.
exactly. So the firewall acts as a gateway here to actually allow requests to the open internet from the bastion host, but also it allows to let's say forward requests from the user to the management interface, right?
Yeah. Cool. So, and can you take us through? Do you have an easy enough deployment model? How many users do you have that have access to this?
Right now it's only two. It's me and a colleague of mine, but
Okay.
it can be basically an unlimited number of users, just
And
depending on the configuration.
and since you've been using OpenZiti for a while, you're now probably a pro. Did you configure the policy to dial these services using an attribute, or did you give direct user access? Like in your policy, is it using attributes or is it using?
Yeah, it's using attributes. It's just called admin ESX access,
Yeah.
and then the users are just well equipped with the appropriate attribute, and then we have a real nice role based access basically.
Nice. Well, that's pretty neat. Well, sorry, I interrupted you.
No worries. I was just about to show you how this looks like. So this domain here, the ESX01.deltasecure.de, is not a public domain. So it's already a CD, let's call it Zitified domain. So it only exists on this host because I have the CD client running.
And now, if I may, I
Sure.
noticed that it's a legitimate top level domain, not some fictitious one. I
Yeah.
imagine that that is so that you can create your own certificates for it. Is that why?
Yes, we currently don't, as you can see.
I
It's
was going to
just the
ask.
yeah, it's it's just the default VMware certificate, but
Okay.
also because we don't really need one because we already
Right.
have end-to-end encryption. So this is it's really just for the eye to not have a red exclamation mark in the top.
100%. Totally. I get it entirely. But it is one of those things where, some people might look at that and go, wait a minute, this is not secure. But like you said, already have end to end encryption, already have an authorized tunnel. Like nobody can get there except if you're on the OpenZiti overlay.
Exactly. So no one's even getting close to that TLS connection anyways, because no one's having any network access
Right.
to this machine. So that's essentially how it works. And I can just share the firewall and IP configuration here. So this is the public IP address of the hypervisor, which would offer the same interface as here. VMware's lagging sometimes, but it offers the same interface if it's publicly available, which it isn't. So I've done a a Nmap scan before just to
Uh-huh.
just to demonstrate that.
Yep.
So this is the public IP address, and we even had to tell Nmap, yes, this host is actually online because otherwise it would have skipped since there's no ports available. And there's you can see there's no open port, but we're still able to access the host via the CD client, and it's the same for the other IP address, which is used for the WAN gateway.
And just for my own benefit, because I got old eyes, that is ESX01.deltasecure.de, correct?
Correct. Yeah. Sorry. It's
Because
a
I
bit.
am also the kind of guy who went and tried to look up that URL.
Yeah. You shouldn't be successful in
I
that.
was
Yeah.
not. I was not. Right.
Right. Yeah.
But that's
Sorry.
fun.
It's a bit small here on my screen.
No, it's all right. Yeah. Cool. Cool. Sorry.
And so the way this works is we have um, a virtual switch, which offers the physical adapter, which is actually connected to the internet, and then we have a WAN VLAN, which is in which the virtual machine is, the firewall virtual machine is, which is OpenSense in this case. And then we also do have a management network, which is the one that you will end up with a default configuration, which is exactly the IP address. So it basically says, okay, if you open or if you access the this IP address on port 443, you will end up getting exactly this management network. And that's what I also wanted to show. So if we deactivate the firewall here, which is this little sorry, this one here, which says, okay, discard everything except all of that, which is above, which is just the CD controller, CD router, and DNS service. And we save that. We will be able to actually access via this IP address. And the reason we still have this active is just for for a scenario where somehow the CD tunneler is not available, or we made some configuration issues, or anything of that sort. So it's just a backup in case anything goes wrong, but it's not used, and it's not supposed to be used because it's just insecure.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Makes perfect sense. That is really neat.
I'm just gonna have to wait here a couple of seconds. So this can take quite a while. But on the other end, we have another switch, which is the internal management switch that we created for this purpose. And it's just a switch that combines the Bastion engine, the Bastion virtual machine, and the OpenSense firewall into one VLAN. And on the other hand, it's combining this new VM kernel port with a local IP address into the same, or to the same switch with the same VLAN tag. So we end up with a possible connection between our Bastion host to our firewall, but also to our internal management network, which is exactly what we can see here. And that's essentially what allows us to access this management interface from our Bastion host.
And so the Bastion host has ZDH tunnel running on it,
Right.
and there's an identity deployed there, and that identity
Correct.
has a service, and that service is configured to offload to 10.1.1.2.
Correct. That's exactly how it works. And as an addition, it also offloads with a different service and different roles or attributes to the OpenSense interface. So that would be on a 10.1.1.1, just to be able to access the OpenSense interface also from outside of the hypervisor management interface.
Yeah, that's a great use case for sure. Is this right here the OpenSense firewall?
This one here?
Yeah.
I know this is actually the interface from our hosting provider. So we have a dedicated server with them, and it's just the web interface that allows us to configure anything essentially on the dedicated server. And they have another feature for a firewall. So this is in addition to the OpenSense firewall, and it's just as another security measure to not have any issues if there's a firewall misconfiguration at one end, for example.
Yeah, really neat. It's very interesting, and we've been watching you access this through Ziti the whole time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So as I usually people will ask what kind of performance penalties there are, and I routinely tell people that humans have no notion that you have all this extra security in place, similar to going through a couple extra firewalls. It really doesn't add anything perceptible. Where is your OpenZiti overlay? You self-host it, you said, right? I think.
Correct. Yep.
Where do you put the routers? Are they right next to the ESX server here, or are they in some place else?
Yeah, not even that. They are even at a totally different machine. Not even on the same core switch. So there is a 1 gigabit per second connection between them, but there is no. They are not particularly near to each other or on the same switch or anything like that. So it's they can really, and we made pretty good experience with that. So they can really be anywhere around the world.
Yeah, that is really neat. Has there been any like downsides to going down through this? Is there like a lessons learned that you would like to do better, or that you can't do when you go through this, and anything that's negative about it?
There's actually there's only one use case I'd say where there's an actual disadvantage, and it's if you need to upload, for example, large images to the hypervisor. So I've now, as you can see, I've deactivated the firewall. So now you could even be able to access this IP, and you'd land on the same page. And the only advantage of accessing directly is if you have to upload large files, and if you have a very fast internet connection. And we have a 1 gigabit connection on our side, and the server has one too. So that's actually where you can feel the difference. But other than that, if you just need to access any kind of web interfaces, also server to server communication, normally it's not going to make you won't even notice any kind of speed reduction actually.
Yeah, very interesting. Now, I have one, or I have a couple other questions, I guess. First, I guess it's a comment. I don't know if you know this, but
Mhm.
recently your prior video has been doing very well for us. Lots and lots of views. I don't know if you've been
Okay.
sharing it. I don't know if you've been sharing it or not, but people have been finding our user spotlight and liking it. So I think they really like this whole approach. So I'm hopeful that this video will do equally well. The next one is, I can't help but notice this is all browser type stuff. And I think you and Kurt were in touch at one point. Have you considered trying to deploy browser at all? Is that still on the radar, or did you give up for other reasons?
Yeah, it's definitely still on the radar, but it's something we've put back a little bit because it's more in the let's say experimental phase, and we've got quite a lot of stuff to do lately.
As it is.
Yeah,
Yep.
and so the I was pretty satisfied with the tests we made. The only thing is that I found that the initial, let's say, barrier is pretty high for each individual application. But that might be something that you guys can fix pretty well in the future. That the dependency on the application that's behind browser is not that that high anymore. Maybe do you know what I mean by that?
No, I was actually going to ask what you mean by the dependency being high.
In the sense that it's quite depend that the setup is quite dependent on which kind of application you have behind browser. That's what I mean by that, and what kind of web server. Or we had one pretty specific use case for one ERP solution, which is Odoo, which is
Oh,
pretty specific
we have
to be fair.
recently enabled Odoo. So yeah, so what you're hinting at here is every HTTP technology. It's been around for a very, very long time, and there are myriads of different ways to accomplish various tasks. And depending on how the developer developed that application, if they use this feature of HTTP or that feature of HTTP or this JavaScript feature or that it tends to be kind of a game of whack-a-mole where one bug will crop up that only this application has ever done before in our experience, or
Mm,
only this has ever been done. And Odoo was one of them and did not work for a while. So it does work now, is my understanding.
that's
So
cool.
maybe that would be interesting. So if anybody out there is using Odoo, hasn't heard of Browser, you can check out Browser too. Kurt and I have talked about that a couple times on the channel. I was just wondering if that had entered into your particular equation or not. So that's really neat. This is, I mean, I think this is really cool stuff. Do you have plans to continue exposing things via OpenZiti, or is this like that's the things that you're doing for now, and that's all you need for now?
I mean, we do have plans for additional systems that we need to deploy, and definitely will deploy by using CD. There's no, let's say, completely out of this world use cases that we have in the pipe right now. But I'm pretty open to see what's possible. Maybe also what I didn't think about, or that we don't think about. But essentially, we're at a point that where every new application is being exposed just by CD, because it just works. You can just deploy, you can just issue identities for all the assets that you need, and just just
Do you,
assign an attribute and it just works. It's
yeah.
really, it's even, you don't even have to do any nutting for port forwarding for any kind of virtual machines or anything. You just have to ensure, okay, network outbound network connection is there, inbound TCP connection is possible for the at least TCP acknowledge replies, and everything works. So that's pretty neat.
That's awesome to hear. What is your primary interface? Do you use the ZD CLI to add a new identity, or do you use the ZD admin console, the ZAC?
Yeah, we use the SAC actually, because it's just for normal, or for the quick modifications. It's just well, at least for me, easier to use.
Sure.
But I mean, I also use the CLI to make backups, for example, or to identify a service, for example. If I only have the service code and not the name and then stuff like that, I use the CLI. But for if I just have to deploy an identity, I figured that it's also not that prone to errors if you can just click and say okay, and it's done.
Nice.
So yeah.
So that sounds like you're doing things on demand then. No need for automation just yet, right? So you haven't had to write your own application that interfaces with ZD. You're happy with Zach, and as a new one comes on, you provision it. Makes perfect sense.
Yeah, we don't currently have custom applications. What we do have is we also use the logs from the routers and from the controller and ship them to our surprise
I
own
was
CM
I was
system.
gonna ask actually. I was
Yeah,
gonna ask. That's cool.
yeah, we do that. Yeah.
Nice. And so do you have you built your own like custom dashboard to handle or process those logs, or are they just there in case when you need them for information?
Well, we have a custom dashboard. We don't do any alerting on that part quite yet, but we do have a custom dashboard, and also
Sounds
well,
like a new Ziti TV to me. I can't wait to.
yeah. I mean, I'm open to that. Yeah.
That's really neat. What about the metrics that the controller emits? Do you gather those at all and ship those?
We do. However, I need to say that I'm not 100% sure which exactly we gather, but we do.
Well, that's cool. No, and I know that the NetFoundry console, the Cloud ZD implementation that NetFoundry provides, also does that, and then surfaces them on a dashboard for people to see. You know which identity is sending the most traffic. Do you use that sort of stuff, or is that not particularly important to you? You don't care how much traffic they're sending.
We don't care too much about how much traffic they're sending, but more about which identity accesses which kind of service at what time. So that's so the actual
Oh, really? So you're doing some like
authentication or access
intelligence
part.
about that sort of stuff? Like you have some policies in place, like this identity can't access that thing outside of these hours, or it's weird if it does?
Yeah, so we don't have actual policies, and I'm not even sure if that's possible via CD to maybe deploy policy where you say, okay, this user is only allowed between
Hmm.
8 a.m. and 5 p.m.
Mm.
But we do have a dashboard which report, or it doesn't alert, but it shows unusual access.
No, that's yeah. ZD does not, has not, and it probably won't try to attack the observability space. It sounds like that's what you guys are doing. I was wondering if
Yeah.
you in your application were using those logs for when you said for exactly that, showing people, this person's using or this identity is using the network outside of the normal times. That's one of those sorts of things that lots of people, when they first get into this, like, oh, is there any AI behind this? Can we do any of this observability stuff? And my answer is always, sure you can. We don't, but you can. So all you got to do is implement it. And sounds like you guys are doing some of that. I think that's really interesting stuff. I would definitely love to see what sort of insights you obtain, when you in your spare time, I'm sure, when you get around to implementing that sort of maybe metrics or alerting type of thing. That's really
I, I
neat.
I already have one, or at least one thing that we had to do, and that was resolving the identity to the actual name. Because for us, if we have just a
Yep.
dashboard with a
Yep.
cryptic identity name, it shows maybe some context, but it doesn't really show, okay, which identity is it.
Yep.
And for the service, for the services, we can already see at quite a number. I'm not sure which logs exactly. Oh no, yeah, I can see it here. Service name. You will get the service name in the logs. But
Do
for
you
the
do you want to show it on the screen or no? I wasn't
Yeah,
sure if that's because we're not sharing anymore.
yeah. I have to see. I can share my screen, the whole screen, but I can, one second. I can copy this log so you can see.
I just didn't know if it's sensitive, you know.
Sure, one second. Yeah, this one's pretty good, I think so. Okay, so now you should be able to see the. Let me just see if I
Yep.
can. Is that
Uh,
getting bigger? Oh,
it-
oh yeah, that's.
there
Oh
it
yeah,
goes.
that
There
should
it goes.
work.
Now I can read it.
Okay, so that's one of the logs, and it says, okay, it's been 3 minutes ago, and it has the API session in it, as you can see here,
Mm-hmm.
and it also has the service name. Whoop. Yep. So there was an error actually here, or no, not an error, a warning, and there was the
Yep.
service name, which is DeltaSecure pull Kafka logs from Bastion, which is exactly what we were talking earlier with the message. Whoops, bit difficult here. To pull the logs from the Bastion host. So this is actually the same host that we are using to access the ESX interface. So and we also log this host as well, obviously. So that's what this service does basically.
Nice. Now, do you mind? Can I ask how many identities do you have provisioned now? Is it tens, twenties, hundreds?
It's not in the hundreds, but it's also not in the 20s anymore. I think maybe around 30, maybe
Nice.
35, something about like that. Yeah.
That's great. I mean, I think this is amazing. It's already at 37 minutes. We've been talking for a while. Is there anything else that is interesting that you want to put on the table, or do you feel pretty good about this session?
Yeah, I think I've shown everything I can show for today, but I'm open to have another one regarding the log collection and metrics maybe in the future.
Sure. That sounds like it would be interesting and fun. Whenever, probably need to make some dummy network that you can share things and,
Yeah,
not feel too worried about exposing some customer's data or whatever.
right.
But that's really cool. It's really exciting. And again, Delta Secure, is it just deltasecure.com? The
It's
Dot
.de.
.de, dot .de,
Yeah.
of course. What silly American, right? All right. Well, great. Well, I mean, Dominic, this has been great. I really enjoyed it. I hope that you've enjoyed it too. Really
I
appreciate you
did.
coming back on Ziti TV. And, like I said, we'll have you on in the future when we have something else that's interesting to share.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me.
All righty. Bye bye. See you,
Bye bye.
everybody.